Death Mage Chapter 168, Those Who Wait for the Trial and Those Who Face It. There was a large, unrefined, sturdy-looking, rectangular entrance that looked as if it was made of steel. Next to it was a wooden sign that looked like a door plate, reading, The Trial of Zackart.
The sign is quite out of place, isn't it?
Vandal Yu remarked.
According to Gizendono, it is something that was added later.
Said Sam. This was the entrance to the Trial of Zackart that had appeared in an area of the Dark Elf Nation. Vandal Yu felt a considerable amount of emotion as he looked up at it. In the depths of this dungeon was a relic of Zackart that would help resurrect his mother.
But it's apparently really dangerous, so don't push yourself. The thought of you and everyone else pushing yourselves too hard is worse for me than the thought of not being resurrected.
Said Darsha's spirit. This was what she truly felt. It wasn't that she didn't want to come back to life, but she didn't want her son or the others that she considered to be family to be injured or killed in the process.
It's all right, Mom. In the southern region of the continent, people don't die in the dungeon except in exceptional cases.
Vandal Yu said, reassuring her.
I know that, but Vandal Yu, you seem like you would do reckless things without even batting an eye.
Said Darsha. Zadyrus and the others nodded in agreement with her words.
A year ago, his heart and lungs were stopped, and he ended up forcibly moving his own heart and breathing by puncturing holes in his own lungs with metal pipes, didn't he?
Said Teria, the leader of the Ghoul Craftsman team.
It was only recently that your head was cut off, Your Majesty.
Said the succubus Iris. Vandal Yu's gaze wandered off in response to these words. But the living armor sisters Saria and Rita, as well as Eleonora, encouraged him.
There are other incidents. There are a lot of cases where it can't be helped.
Said Saria.
Now that I think back, I do think they were often the right choices to make.
Said Rita.
So, Vandal Yu-sama, it's nothing to worry about, but please be as careful as possible.
Said Eleonora.
Yes, I'll do my best.
Vandal Yu said.
By the way, are we going to clear the dungeon right now?
Borkus asked. The women raised their voices.
What are we going to do about the tournament? We were still deciding who gets Vandal Yu.
That's right, I haven't lost yet. I don't have any hope, even though I tried quite hard.
It is true that we had the Emperor sit in a seat with the word prize written on it, but that was not the objective of this tournament.
Said the Dark Elf King Gizin, who had led everyone here. He had a stiff smile on his face. He had only intended for those who won to be able to face the trial of Zackart with Vandal Yu. But it seemed that before he knew it, all kinds of other things had been added on.
Callers!
I want a transformation staff.
I heard that there were rights to experiencing a new massage.
Perhaps they were just jokes that had gone too far, but there was cold sweat on Gizin's forehead.
I'll make those for you even if you don't win. I haven't thought of a new massage yet, and I can't make the collars and transformation staff right away, though.
Said Vandal Yu, seeming to not be bothered by this as he calmed the contestants down.
But please call them chokers, not collars.
Yai Tilda. Gizin breathed a sigh of relief as well. He swore to himself that he would not make any more careless jokes from now on.
I believe we can simply cancel the tournament. It was not a tournament with victory as the goal in the first place, and although there are more contestants remaining than other years, this year we have His Majesty the Emperor and his abnormal ability to transport people.
Said Gizin, announcing the cancellation of the tournament. During other years, the tournament usually only selected several challengers, or perhaps a little over 10 people at most. That was because it would be too dangerous if those challenging the trial were too weak, and the people on the inside of the Boundary Mountain Range thought that the meaning of the trial would be diminished if the challengers formed large groups to face it. The Trial of Zackart was a dungeon that searched for the successor to the champion Zackart. It was a ceremonial trial. there would be no point to it if the strength of numbers was used to push through and conquer it. In fact, doing so might anger the dungeon's creator, Gjufedgarn, the evil god of labyrinths, who was likely waiting in its deepest chamber. And the trial of Zakhart contained several floors that were too narrow for groups of several dozen individuals to move about properly. For these reasons, Gizon and the others had restricted the size of the groups, challenging the dungeon to several people to around a dozen at most.
But this was not true for the human societies on the outside of the Boundary Mountain Range, that believed that one would become recognized as a successor to the champion Belwood if they cleared the trial of Zakhart.
In the past, there had been numerous royals and nobles who had tried to clear the dungeon by sending over 100 knights and adventurers inside, and some nations who had continuously sent slaves inside the dungeon, not to clear the dungeon, but to stop it and keep it within their own borders. The results of these attempts were clear, as the trial of Zakhart was still roaming the world today.
But Vandalu was able to equip large numbers of undead, insects, and plant-type monsters with group binding technique. And Vandalu was the most likely candidate to be the successor to Zakhart that Gjufedgarn was searching for.
He possessed a soul that had been created from the soul fragments of the champions. He wasn't a successor in the ordinary sense of the word. But considering the time at which Gjufedgarn had suddenly awoken and created the trial of Zakhart, it was clear that he had nominated Vandalu. Thus, Gizon and the others had decided that Vandalu would be allowed to use some extreme methods.
Therefore, this year, it will be fine for all contestants who possess a certain amount of strength, those who can survive a B-class dungeon with ease, to participate.
Gizon said, making a decision that had never been made in previous years.
That's disappointing. If I just had another year, if I just had more muscular strength,
said Aniwaka, Kijin King Tenma's daughter, in frustration. She had trained herself even further after her contest of strength against Vandalu in the Kijin nation, but it seemed that she hadn't had enough time. But Aniwaka already had plenty of physical strength, the strength needed for her to swing her weapons and run around while wearing her armor.
No, I think you have plenty of muscular strength,
said Gizon, having watched her during the tournament.
In fact, I believe the problem lies in your technique and experience.
Aniwaka-san, there will be more opportunities to fight. If you continue your steady training until then, you will have enough physical strength,
said Vandalu.
You're right. Vandalu, I'm going to show you what I'm worth in next year's bodybuilding tournament and the next opportunity to fight.
Gizon's words seemed to have been drowned out by Vandalu's, not reaching Aniwaka's brain despite entering her ears.
Also, if you polish your technique as well as your muscles, you'll be perfect,
said Vandalu, not forgetting to tell her to improve herself in areas other than muscular strength.
You're right. Those who call themselves warriors must strive for greater heights,
said Aniwaka. With enough diligent training, the experience needed to make decisions in an instant would develop naturally.
Keisha, Bilda, please look after Talishheim with Mikal and the others,
said Vandalu. Keisha, the ghoul woman who had once been an adventurer, and Bilda, the young ghoul from the same settlement as Zadiris, didn't have enough strength to face the trial. Thus, they were left with the responsibility of protecting Talishheim.
It can't be helped. I finally increased my rank and became a ghoul Amazonas warrior, but it's still tough for me to take on a rank 8 monster by myself,
said Keisha.
I'll help Bilda and play with Varby and Jadal.
Yeah, I'm counting on you,
said Bastia, who often left her daughter Jadal with Keisha and Bilda.
I feel bad always relying on you, but
don't worry about it,
said Bilda.
By the way, how long do you think it will take?
I think it will take at least 1 month. We don't know how many floors there are after all,
said Vandalu.
The trial of Zakhart was confirmed to have at least 50 floors. The group of challengers led by Kijin King Tenma had progressed past the 50th floor, but even then, they had apparently been unable to see the end of the trial. Thus, Vandalu thought that it would take about a month, even if they were to progress through 2 floors a day.
So let's go back to Talishheim and make preparations first,
said Vandalu, turning around.
Indeed, we must pack our things,
said Sam.
We need to make adjustments if we're leaving Talishheim for over a month,
said Eleonora.
I can't stand having to go back with a dungeon right in front of us, but I suppose it can't be helped,
said Borges. Being in a dungeon for over a month meant that they would need to prepare all kinds of equipment and things like food. It seemed that they would be able to procure a certain amount of food from inside the Trial of Zakhart itself, but there were also places where there were several floors of icy fields in a row and floors with stone labyrinths containing nothing but inedible monsters.
The Trial of Zakhart would remain in the same place for a month, and it would not teleport as long as challengers were still inside.
Thus, there was no need to rush. Previous challengers had also faced it after making sufficient preparations, rather than entering as soon as it appeared.
Also, there's the issue of jobs. Is everyone alright in that regard? If anyone is almost at level 100, we can wait about half a month,
said Vandalyu.
Queen Doninaris had asked Vandalyu this question before. Rank increases were automatic as long as the conditions were fulfilled, but job changes required one to touch the crystal at the center of a designated job-changing room.
Come to think of it, can't we take a job-changing room with us? It would be simple if we could just carry that crystal with us,
said Baba Yaga, one of Legion's personalities.
It seemed that there were still many things that she was curious about, as it had only been about a year since she was reincarnated from Origin, a world without jobs and skills.
You can't do that. To be more precise, it's possible but not realistic,
said Isla Isla, twirling the chain on her collar around her fingers. She was around 30,000 years old if one included the time she had lived before becoming an undead several years ago. Carrying the crystal of a job-changing room on its own didn't allow one to change jobs anywhere. The entire room, including the crystal, was a ceremonious place for the purpose of carrying out a job change.
Thus, there would be no point in having just the crystal.
And the job-changing room needed properly built walls and a ceiling. Something like a tent that could be put up and taken down easily wouldn't work as a substitute.
Every few thousand years, there are strange humans that try all kinds of things, like building a job-changing room in a dungeon chamber and armies that bring craftsmen and materials with them on an expedition to build one. But they're destroyed by monsters and enemies, so they can't be used for long. And in the end, they always decide that it wasn't worth the cost and effort,
said Isla.
Thus, the most that could be done was building job-changing rooms at permanent defensive positions such as forts, outside dungeon entrances, and on the edges of devil's nests.
I see. So it's not for game-like reasons then,
said Baba Yaga.
Wait, if that is the case, this can all be solved by taking the entire room with us,
said Valkyrie.
Valkyrie, that's impossible. Even if you were to turn the whole room into golems, Vandalyu-sama can't equip golems inside himself,
said Eleonora.
I could have it move while still retaining its shape as a room, but it would take a lot of effort in carrying it around in the narrow areas of the Trial of Zakhart. It might be destroyed by monsters or traps too,
said Vandalyu.
There will be no problems if it is placed in a part of Sam's carriage,
she said.
In my carriage, I do have spare space, but is it possible?
Sam asked, looking back at his carriage.
The carriage, which was Sam's main body, was a 3-horse carriage with a canopy. It was unthinkable that it could carry a properly constructed room.
But with the space expansion skill, the interior volume of the carriage was easily over 10 times its exterior appearance. It would even fit a small house inside, never mind a small room. Vandalyu gave it some thought.
It's possible,
he said, surprised by this realization.
Honestly, the thought never occurred to me. Valkyrie, that's an amazing idea.
As Sam was an undead, Vandalyu could equip him with group binding technique.
There would be no problem with this, even if there was a job-changing room installed inside his carriage.
A moving, job-changing room. The thought never occurred to us, either,
said Gizin.
Amazing. With one sentence, you solved a problem that humans have failed to solve for thousands of years.
Said Borges.
You can praise me more if you want. Well, the idea only came to me because we have Sam and Vandalue.
But they say that without the 1% inspiration, the 99% hard work goes to waste.
Said Vandalue, patting Valkyrie's head as he remembered the words of a wise man.
Let's build it as quickly as possible when we get back.
Indeed, Vandalue had a fixed idea of what a job-changing room was. He wouldn't have come up with this idea, no matter how long he thought about it.
With this, even if anyone reached level 100 inside the dungeon, they would be able to change jobs. Even Vandalue would be able to acquire a new job, like the bestower job that had appeared at his last job change.
So, Father will be renovated. He's becoming less and less like an ordinary carriage, isn't he?
Said Rita.
Rita, just say that I am becoming more convenient.
Said Sam.
Wound.
Notchin groaned, as if to ask, "What about me?" as it was made of a countless number of bones that could rearrange themselves in any form.
Notchin, your bones come apart when you're moving, and your physical size doesn't change as you don't have the space expansion skill, so it's difficult for you.
Said Vandalue.
Wound.
Notchin, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, so do not lose spirit.
Said Sam.
You are a fortress, not a storehouse after all.
Lohin.
Notchin, who had seemed sad a moment ago, regained its spirit.
We have to install the job-changing room in Sam, but there are a lot of other things we need to bring. We don't know what kind of state we'll get Zakart's relics in after we clear the dungeon after all.
Said Vandalue.
I've kept materials that could be used for Mom's new body preserved in the workshop too.
He was carrying around the blood crystal that he had received from Vita as well as Darsha's remains. But the orichalcum skeletons that he had made, the artificial body parts made from the Demon Kings, fragments and materials from high-rank monsters, were inside his underground workshop. He had to go and get them.
Vandalue, I get the feeling that the goddess's blood alone will be enough. I'm not sure what I'll become if you were to use all of those things.
Said Darsha, seeming uncertain as to whether she would be a dark elf when she was resurrected.
I cannot imagine it, but things will work out. Even if you grew something, like new wings or a tail.
Said Iris.
Iris, if that was supposed to be reassuring, I'm sure you could have chosen other words.
Said Keisha.
Eleonora, you mustn't look at Darsha-sama like a companion who is just like you.
Darsha felt a sense of companionship with those whose races had been changed by Vandalue.
The Farzan Duchy was one of the Orbam Kingdom's 12 duchies, the duchy that prospered on its maritime and fishing industries.
There was a valley that had become a devil's nest in an inland region of the Farzan Duchy, some distance away from the sea.
There were a few men and women gathered here.
So this is the place. The place where the trial of Zakart will appear next.
Said the blue-flamed sword Heinz, the leader of the S-Class adventurer party known as the Five-Colored Blades, with emotion in his voice.
He was already in his late 20s, but perhaps as one would expect from an S-Class adventurer, he looked younger than his appearance. His skin did not show any signs that he was about to enter middle age. He was holding a map that he had borrowed using society's trust in his party, and a magic item that resembled 3 compasses that had been joined together.
So we're finally challenging the trial of Zakart again. It's really been a long time.
Said the scout Edgar with a distant look in his eyes.
He had already entered his 30s and had wrinkles on his face.
Jennifer and Diana joined us, we met Selen, and before we knew it, we became the leaders of Alda's peaceful faction and honorary nobles.
It really has been a long time,
said the unarmed fighter Jennifer with a sigh.
I thought that I'd die of old age without ever seeing it.
She had joined the Five-Colored Blades after Heinz's party moved to the Orbam Kingdom and faced the trial of Zakart. Her objective was to conquer the trial of Zakart, which was like a fairy tale for adventurers, and become a living legend. And yet, all kinds of things had happened since she joined the Five-Colored Blades, but she had never managed to face the trial of Zakart.
I'm sorry for dragging you through all kinds of things. But there's no mistake that this trial seeker is pointing to this location.
Said Heinz.
It's not like I was complaining, blaming you, or doubting you, Heinz.
Jennifer said.
I just thought that it's been a long time. I've become stronger over the past few years, and I got to meet Selen. I don't think of it as a waste of time.
I think it was rather quick. The Trial of Zakhart is a wandering dungeon that teleports around different places in the world, about once every month. If it appears in distant places and places that are far from where humans live, the chances of reaching it before it moves somewhere else are not high. According to the records, it is not unusual for it to appear outside of the Bon Gaia continent.
Said the elf Diana, who was a priestess of Mil, the goddess of slumber. She had once been Jennifer's partner when they were an adventurer duo. She was young for an elf, but she seemed the calmest among the party.
Well, since you're an elf, I'm sure that's how it is for you, Diana.
Said Heinz.
But the months and years since I joined the Five-Colored Blades have been unbelievably eventful. Honestly speaking, it feels as if I have lived through 100 years' worth of adventure in the past few years.
Diana said.
We fought a pure-breed vampire, and we sealed away a Demon King fragment recently, too. We've been through all kinds of things. It might be an exaggeration to say that it's 100 years' worth, though.
Said Deliza, the female dwarf shield-bearer.
But our objective isn't to stare at the entrance to the Trial of Zakhart. Everyone, prepare yourselves, or so I say, but even the trial seeker can't tell when the dungeon will appear, can it?
There was a renowned space attribute mage who hadn't faced the Trial of Zakhart, but had noticed its peculiar characteristics when it began appearing. He had realized that the dungeon's teleportation to a new location every month was either because of an advanced space attribute spell, or because it had been created by a god who ruled over the space attribute, or some other evil god.
Thus, he devoted himself to researching it.
It was a heretical way of thinking, as he had been surrounded by those who thought of the Trial of Zakhart as a trial to find the successor of the champion Belwood, who had defeated the fallen, undead champion Zakhart.
Thus, his research had never stood out, but it produced results.
He invented a magic item that, with a number of conditions met, identified the location where the Trial of Zakhart would next appear.
And then he had handed that magic item to Randolph, the True, an S-class adventurer whose name had already been well known at the time.
But Randolph had simply kept the trial seeker in his possession, not facing the Trial of Zakhart even once. And then Heinz and his companions had received it.
It's unfortunate, but we only know the next place it will appear. But even then, it's worth the effort we've made.
Said Heinz. After he and his party sealed away the Demon King's nose, they had learned of the trial seeker's existence from the notes of the space attribute mage who created it, and learned that it was in Randolph's possession.
Randolph was working under a false name now, but they had found him and asked him to lend this magic item to them.
Randolph had given a deep sigh, but handed them the trial seeker with no sign of regret. If you want to risk your lives on a pointless effort, then I'll give it to you.
But don't ever make contact with me again, he had told them, and then he had suddenly vanished right in front of their eyes, leaving no response to their questions of what his parting words meant.
It was a lot of hard work finding Randolph. I feel like it was even more work than finding Tarnisha's hidden base. And we had to go around the mages' guilds to have them investigate how to use the magic item.
Said Edgar.
It couldn't have killed Randolph to give us some written instructions, right?
Edgar, I think we should be thankful that he gave us a magic item for free. It must have been bothersome that we found him and made contact with him, yet he gave it to us without asking for any money or anything. Though it's true that he looked really displeased the whole time and his eyes looked like he was making fools of us.
Said Jennifer.
Edgar isn't being serious, Jennifer. It's just that his pride as a scout was just hurt by the fact that he couldn't follow Randolph's presence when he disappeared.
Said Deliza.
He was still upset over that, huh? So petty.
Said Jennifer.
It cannot be helped. Human men develop an inferiority complex once they are over 30 years old.
Said Diana. Under the eyes of the women of the party, Edgar realized that things weren't looking good for him.
I'll look for a suitable place to set up camp.
He said, and then he left.
Good grief.
Hines muttered. But they did indeed need a place to set up camp. They had learned where the trial of Zakhart would next appear thanks to the trial seeker. But as Hines had told Deliza, there was no way of telling when the trial of Zakhart would appear here.
It was coincidence that we could quickly arrive at the next place the trial will appear after we went around visiting mages' guilds and alchemists to investigate how to use this thing, but the dungeon might appear tomorrow, or it might take over a month.
Even if a month passed, the trial of Zakhart would not move to its next destination as long as there were still challengers inside.
I hope it's appeared in a secluded region so that there aren't any challengers. We'll clear the trial of Zakhart, avenge Martina, take over the great tasks of the champion Bellwood, and hear Alda's voice.
Said Hines, his voice full of resolve.
If possible, I want us to serve that duty.
As leaders of Alda's peaceful faction and as Selen's caretakers, I hope we can take that role.
Said Diana.
I want to at least bring back a lock of Marty's hair. We couldn't even do that last time.
Said Deliza.
Still, I wonder where it is now.
Jennifer said, looking up at the sky.
They didn't know.
They had no idea that the trial of Zakhart was in the dark elf nation in the region contained within the Boundary Mountain Range, a place that was unexplored territory for them.
It's possible that it's outside the continent, like Diana said.
Said Hines. He and his companions didn't know the true purpose of the trial of Zakhart, or that the one who cleared it would become not the successor of Bellwood, but of Zakhart, the one they called the Fallen Champion. Most importantly, they didn't know that inside the Boundary Mountain Range, Vandalyu was about to face the trial of Zakhart. The five-colored blades would only be able to face the trial of Zakhart if Vandalyu and his companions were defeated by the trial and ejected outside the dungeon. Several days later, Vandalyu and his companions assembled in front of the trial of Zakhart once more, having made their preparations.
We'll do our best to survive.
Teria exclaimed.
Yeah.
Povina shouted, raising her fist into the air.
I wouldn't mind if you left me behind.
Luciliano said sorrowfully.
It's fine. We'll protect you as well as we can. You can't let your guard down, but don't worry so much.
Povina said, reassuring him.
Yes, Povina narrowly qualified for this.
Said Vandalyu. Povina had been increasing her level in Vandalyu's failed attempt at creating a class dungeon that was still more difficult than an ordinary B-class dungeon, alongside Privel and the others. Thus, both Vandalyu and Gizin had accepted that she was qualified to face the trial of Zakhart. And since she was qualified to face it, she would follow Vandalyu inside. But even though she raised her orichalcum shield and Vandalyu spoke reassuring words, the fear on Luciliano's face didn't fade away in the slightest.
As well as you can, you say. Narrowly qualified, you say. These aren't reassuring words at all.
Luciliano shouted.
Indeed, perhaps these weren't quite the correct choice of reassuring words.
Have you forgotten your leveling with us in B-class dungeons, Lucy? You were always laughing towards the end of it, weren't you?
Said the Saint of Healing, Gina.
That's right, you'll be fine. And if you're about to die, the dungeon will forcibly teleport you outside, and the Dark Elf medical team will heal you back up.
Said the tiny genius Zandia.
The two of them had forced Luciliano to accompany them into B-class dungeons.
So believe in yourself.
Zandia said, but Luciliano was aware that he had been laughing during those leveling sessions because he had been a little mentally broken. It was true that Luciliano's level had increased considerably, and he had even changed jobs. But he couldn't imagine that he had become strong enough to pass through the trial of Zakhart, a place that countless B-class and A-class adventurers had failed to return from alive.
I'm telling you, it's impossible, and I came here from outside the Boundary Mountain Range. There is no guarantee that Gufudgarn will recognize me as someone from inside the Boundary Mountain Range.
Luciliano protested.
That's true.
Gufidgarn was never even aware of where he and the trial of Zakhart currently were. It was unclear as to how aware he was of the challengers inside the dungeon.
And until now, there were none who had faced the trial of Zakhart after crossing the Boundary Mountain range.
Luciliano's concerns were reasonable.
But I want you to manage the materials that could be used for Mom's new body, so please work with me, Luciliano. And I want you to look at the corpses of previous challengers that we might find inside.
Said Vandalyu.
And now that you mention it, there are those.
Luciliano exclaimed.
Godwin, Budarian, and the others who had faced the trial of Zakhart before had seen preserved statues made of stone and metal, depicting people they had never seen before.
It was likely that this was what remained of Martina of the Five-Colored Blades and the other challengers from the outside of the Boundary Mountain range.
This was a valuable opportunity to touch the precious corpses of powerful adventurers that he normally wouldn't be able to touch. Luciliano pondered this for a while.
All right.
He said finally with a nod.
But I will not participate in battle, so don't expect me to fight.
It's all right. I was never expecting that to begin with.
Said Vandalyu.
Yeah, nobody's expecting that.
Said Povina.
I see, that makes me more relieved.
Luciliano said, smiling broadly upon realizing that nobody had been counting on him to fight to begin with.
I think you should be a little more concerned about it.
Said Vigero.
But Luciliano showed no signs of concern at all.
I am joining so that I can maintain the equipment. You're being too selfish.
Said Teria. She was planning to be on standby inside Sam's carriage as much as possible as well, however.
Luciliano, Teria, why don't the both of you have the boy make you new equipment like this transformation staff?
Zadirus suggested.
I have not used the finished product yet either, but the prototype that I tried has considerable defensive power.
I refuse. Master said that those take time to make as they are order-made for individual use.
Said Luciliano.
The items can be used by others, as they still don't have a function to identify users. But it would be like me trying to wear clothes that fit you perfectly, wouldn't it? That would be terrible, so I will decline.
Said Teria.
Ma, that is true.
Zadirus agreed, lowering her transformation staff.
The prototype was a simple item, but the boy did say that the finished product will have a lot of decorations.
Now then, I suppose we should get going.
Said Vandalyu.
Everyone, Vandalyu, don't push yourselves.
Said Darsha. Vandalyu, who had equipped everyone that he could, entered the trial of Zakhart with Vigero, Zadirus, and Legion. Gizon and the other dark elves, who were now in work mode, watched them leave.
With this, our yearly suffering might finally come to an end.
Said Gizon, who was also acting as the leader of the medical squad. Name Levia. Rank 9. Race Satan Blood Blaze Ghost. Level 85s. Passive skills.
Spirit form level 10, level up.
Mental corruption level 5.
Heat manipulation level 10, level up. Flame nullification. Materialization level 9, level up. Augmented mana level 6, level up.
Self-enhancement subordinate level 10, level up. Self-enhancement Demon King's Blood level 5, new. Active skills.
Housework level 5. Projectile fire level 10, level up.
Possession level 5, level up. Silent steps level 2, new. Long distance control level 6, new. Unarmed fighting technique level 2, new. Shield technique level 3, new. Surpass limits level 3, new. Aura of fear level 3, new. Name Orbia.
Rank 7.
Race Dark Broad Ghost. Level 90. Passive skills.
Spirit form level 9, level up. Mental corruption level 6. Water attribute nullification.
Liquid manipulation, level 8 level up. Materialization, level 8 level up. Augmented mana, level 5 level up. Earth attribute resistance, level 5 new. Active skills. Unarmed fighting technique, level 3 level up.
Fishing, level 3.
Housework, level 2. Dancing, level 4. Projectile fire, level 7 level up. Long distance control, level 3 new.
No attribute magic, level 1's new. Water attribute magic, level 4 new.
Earth attribute magic, level 1's new. Mana control, level 2 new. Unique skills. Maribevil's divine protection. Name Kimberly.
Rank 7.
Race Thunderbolt Ghost.
Level 67.
Passive skills. Spirit form, level 7 level up. Mental corruption, level 3. Wind attribute nullification. Lightning manipulation, level 8 level up.
Materialization, level 5 level up. Intuition, level 3 level up.
Mana enlargement, level 3 level up. Active skills.
Silent steps, level 6.
Trap, level 5.
Projectile fire, level 5 level up.
Possession, level 5 level up. Long distance control, level 4 new. Archery, level 5 new. Monster explanation.
Satan Blood Blaze Ghost.
A monster born after the Deep Blood Blaze ghost Princess Levia increased her rank even further.
It is believed that this is the result of her having continued drinking the blood potion created by Vanelu.
She is covered in majestic black flames worthy of the name of Satan, a demon king. She also possesses the ability to strengthen herself even further with the demon king's blood.
Incidentally, the demon king's blood used for this is the blood of the one who possesses the demon king title, in other words, Vanelu.
She has learned the materialization skill from Orbia, allowing her to materialize parts of her own body. She is using this ability to learn unarmed fighting technique and shield technique. Monster explanation. Dark Broad Ghost. A monster born after the Deep Broad Ghost increased her rank even further. The liquid making up her entire body has grown deeper in color, and it is becoming more like a physical body. Her training in magic is progressing smoothly. She is learning magic-related skills that she had found difficult and not acquired while she was alive.
But she apparently still finds magic difficult. She is more proficient in suffocating enemies by covering their faces and attacking them from the inside after getting inside their lungs.
Monster explanation.
Thunderbolt Ghost. Kimberly became a hard blitz ghost and then increased in rank even further.
Unlike the races of Levia and Orbia, Thunderbolt ghosts have appeared in Lambda before, albeit in extremely small numbers. This fact bothers him a little, and he has decided that he will become a unique race with his next rank increase.